Today, we're taking a look at one of the most popular colder weather niche fragrances ever. Hello, welcome back to Seldom Lay Off, and I'm Daniel. Today we're talking fragrances, and this is a practical review of Kilian's Angel Share. These reviews are for fragrances I have a lot of experience with, multiple wears in many situations, and are meant to give you a general idea of what it feels to wear the fragrance. As per usual, I do a lot of research before buying fragrances these days, but I don't really like to go into details about notes and accords, as I don't really think that they help the end user. I'd rather talk about the wear experience as a whole. Today's scent is a heavy hitter in the fragrance community. It's definitely one of the most popular colder weather fragrances out there. I seem to remember Angel Share being nominated on Fragrantica as one of the best niche perfumes ever. Maybe even the top spot of a given year. I don't really follow this stuff, I don't really care. Also, as I mentioned on another video, when there's a ton of hype behind the product, I tend to strive away from that. I eventually picked up a bottle of Angel Share because it was one of my few options to exchange a return. I thought that the bottle was cool, and ultimately I was like, if I don't like it, I can always trade it very easily. I did end up liking the scent quite a bit actually, and I wore it a lot. I got to know it very well, and yes, it is a simple scent. Yes, it is mass appealing and pretty basic, and this is true for most Kilian scents. Kilian as a house is not something that I would define necessarily experimental or daring or too exciting. Currently, I own this 50 ml bottle of Angel Share and a 50 ml bottle of Fiebre Verte. Actually, I own the one with the previous name. I can't remember what it is off the top of my head, but it's basically the same scent. I think that these bottles are cool. I got them mostly for the bottles. I got it for the concept behind it, which I also think is cool. Yeah, the scents are pretty simple. Kilian makes very simple and elegant scents, nothing groundbreaking, and also for Angel Share, spoiler, there are alternatives which are way better. I also tried other scents from the house of Kilian, namely Black Phantom. I tried Dark Lord. I think I tried another one of the boozy ones. Maybe it was Vodka on the Rocks or something like that. Nothing too surprising. They're actually quite forgettable. Even the most daring one, which is Dark Lord, was like, that's okay. I've tried worse. Yeah, I'm not too excited about the House of Kilian in general. I'm not really the user for it. But that being said, I think it's a good house if you have the budget for it. Their fragrances offer pretty good longevity. They offer relatively interesting scent profiles, especially coming from a designer. I think that they are sort of meant to be a bridge between a designer and true niche. Actually, I think that By Kilian is considered a designer fragrance brand because they do make other products other than fragrances, but that's a whole nother story that I don't really want to touch upon. So my experience with the House of Kilian is pretty limited. Again, it's not one of those houses that I was really craving to dive into more. I like this. I'll probably be keeping this for a while, but who knows. I gave a shout out to Angel Share in the video where I compare Initial Side Effect and Paris Grand Reserve by Atkinson's. In that video, I mentioned that Angel Share is also part of this huge family of fragrances, which include these boozy, woody notes, maybe like a gourmand aspect, maybe some ambery vanillas. I would say that this family is it's massive. It's very trendy in a way because there are a ton of fragrances that cover these sort of topics. And most of the fragrances within this scent family smell very similar. Another fragrance that could easily be put into this family is the recently reviewed in the first impression, Daniel Josier Ambre Tabac. That also really reminded me of Angel Share. You could potentially say that Angel Share was one of the first ones to come out and that all the other ones are inspirations, but ultimately it doesn't really matter. If the reality is that all these fragrances smell similar, you really want to gravitate towards the one that has the nuance that maybe you like more and that has the best performance, longevity, and price ratio. In this video, when talking about the scent profile for Angel Share, I'll also be comparing it to Parfums de Marly Oajan. This is like the default comparison between the two. And actually, it smells surprisingly similar with some slight differences. But before talking about the scent profile, let's quickly touch on the presentation. I think that the presentation for Kilian's products is definitely one of the highlights of the brand. They all look very unique. The bottles feel very high quality and very well made. There's a lot of attention to detail going on. And from afar, the bottle for Angel Share definitely catches your eye. It's one of the most unique and copied bottles on the market. There are tons of clones that take inspiration by this bottle design and copy it shamelessly, namely La Taffa Camera. And yes, some of you may argue that La Taffa Camera is not actually a clone of Angel Share, but I really haven't smelled that, so I don't really know. All I know is that the bottle looks incredibly similar to this. Unfortunately, the two bottles share something, and that thing is the plastic cap. The cap for Angel Share is a huge topic of debate. Yes, it is plastic, it is a resin or acrylic or whatever. I have to be honest here, it doesn't feel bad. This feels like a high quality acrylic. It's very transparent, it's very smooth, and very well made. That being said, it does kind of look weird, especially when put on the bottle, and it does feel weird. The click sound and the type of feeling that you get when you put the cap on is really not reassuring. It feels like you're scratching the cap every time you're putting it on. Would I love it if the cap were glass? Absolutely. Unfortunately, this would probably make the fragrance even more expensive than it is, because this isn't cheap at all. And it would probably create issues with durability. Every time you click it into place, maybe it would microfracture. I'm not really sure about glass manufacturing, but it would also make this thing incredibly heavy, because this bottle is heavy on its own. The base of the bottle with the sprayer, excluding the cap, is exceptionally good. It's absolutely top tier. The Atomizer is one of the best in the business. Not only is it pressurized, but it sprays a ton of liquid. It's easy to aim and very, very predictable. Let's give it a couple sprays. I wore this as my scent of the day today. It's actually very cold where I am. Today, when I left the house, it was 7 or 8 degrees Celsius. I'm not really sure how much that is in Fahrenheit, but considering we're technically still in the summer, it's absolutely crazy. On the top of the Atomizer, you get a K for Kilian, and the plaque in front is metal. It's incredibly well made. It just feels solid all around. Not even the box for Angel Share disappoints. It's well made, it's solid, and it makes a great impression. Once again, when talking Kilian, presentation is definitely a highlight for the house. There's absolutely nothing to complain about except for the price, because obviously this kind of top tier presentation comes at a pretty penny for the user. Okay, now that we have the obvious out of the way, let's talk about the scent profile. In this video, I want to mix it up a little bit and talk about the practicalities first, just because I want to really focus on the comparison between the other scents in this family and Oajan later. When speaking practicalities, one of the first things that people want to know, and the first thing that comes to mind often, is the performance. How is the performance on Angel Share? Let me tell you, it's absolutely amazing. The performance on this is nothing short of outstanding. There's nothing to complain about. You get 10 hours plus. Today, I went for 4 sprays total. 1 on each clavicle, 1 behind my head, and 1 on my arm. This thing lasted until I was back from work. And I left the house at about 7 a.m. and came back at 5:30 p.m. And the thing was still very, very noticeable. Throughout the day, I kept getting whiffs of it. I kept getting the smell of it. It's beautiful, it's alluring, and it's definitely very satisfying. Projection and sillage are also amazing. You can totally smell this fragrance around you. People can smell it. And I can totally see how this is considered one of the most complimented fragrances ever. No one complimented on me because no one compliments me, period, and I started to think it's a myth. But if they were, this would be a pretty good candidate. And I'm opening a parenthesis here. The whole compliments thing is completely overrated. Please don't buy fragrances for compliments. Please don't buy fragrances for others. Buy fragrances that you like, and buy fragrances that you feel like wearing. Continuing on the practicalities, I would say that this fragrance is incredibly unisex. It's very well made. It strikes the balance in the middle. A man or woman or anything in between could easily pull this off. Age-wise, this is also exceptionally versatile. Anyone from late teens down to a more mature age could easily enjoy this. And you could probably enjoy different aspects of this fragrance. So this fragrance would probably grow with you. And although the scent profile is quite simple, there definitely are some subtle nuances that you get by wearing this again and again. Use case is probably where this fragrance is a little less versatile. First of all, it's a pretty dense scent. It's a pretty sweet scent. So I wouldn't necessarily wear this in the summer. You can do whatever you want, but gourmands, for me, they just don't work in hot weather. And there's something about the vanilla notes, there's something about those sweet woods and ambers that just kind of explode in the heat. And I'm not really all for that. I would say that the scent comes off as quite elegant. It scales incredibly well with formal wear, but at the same time, it's approachable enough that you could probably wear it in more casual settings. If I was forced to place this in a specific box, I would probably categorize this as an evening formal type of scent. It's great at catching attention, it's great at bringing people in, and overall, it's a mass appealing scent with a beautiful scent profile that is very, very likable. Okay, now that we're done with that, let's talk about my impressions and how I feel it smells off my skin. The first thing that comes to mind when I smell Angel Share is the boozy notes and the woody notes. There's definitely an oak barrel in here, and the boozy notes are actually very much tied to those woody notes. The scent definitely gives off this oak barrel type of thing that is used for liquor. Some people talk about the cinnamon being extremely forward in the scent, and yes, this is definitely a spicy scent with a very warm character, but I don't get the cinnamon first and foremost. Another thing that people say is that this smells straight up like apple pie, and I don't really get that either. If I would have to tag this to some pre-existing smell, I would say that it smells very close to something like Fireball whiskey. The boozy notes, although quite apparent, they're not as strong as something like Nishanel's Fan Your Flames, which is very boozy forward, or even something like Nasomatto Barona, which is one of the best renditions of booze and whiskey that I've ever smelled. One of the reasons why those boozy notes don't really stand out that much to me is because of the massive base in this fragrance. And there's a lot of amber, there's a lot of vanilla, there are some spices. I seem to remember that in the notes there's a praline note, which I don't pick up, or rather, I don't really know what it smells like. And actually, I was very scared of in the beginning. When I saw the note, I was like, I don't really want this in my fragrance. I don't really want this like gourmand chocolate type of thing. But thankfully, there is no trace of that to my nose, and if it's there, it just blends into the rest. Going back to the idea of this massive scent family that covered these boozy, woody, gourmand fragrances, you really cannot mention the other ones that are in there. And the more popular ones that are in that category are Oajan by Parfums de Marly, which this is compared to, as I mentioned. But there are tons of other ones. And again, you could pick out Initial Side Effect, you could pick out Daniel Hosier, Ambre Tabac, and these are just the ones that I sampled. But the fragrance family is massive and there's tons of stuff in there. Speaking of Oajan, let me give it a couple sprays to compare. I worn this a lot too. I just was curious about the comparison. I just was curious about the hype because this is regarded as one of the best Parfums de Marly out there. I have to say that this is a very good fragrance, especially considering that I'm a little bit biased against Parfums de Marly. And this one here really surprised me. Now, I have to say that neither of these two fragrances are my favorite scent profile, so take that with a grain of salt. But for what it is, for how simple and captivating and mass appealing this is, it's very well done. I know what these smell like very well, but just to remind myself, when comparing the two, the most striking aspect is that, to me at least, is that Angel Share is way less sweet and it's way more woody. I think that Oajan would be much better suited to be categorized as a gourmand fragrance, while Angel Share is a little bit more of an adult take on Oajan. I would also say that the performance in these two is quite comparable. They're both very, very long lasting. Oajan might even just take the cake here, but due to that massive vanilla note that Oajan has, especially compared to Angel Share, vanilla accords are often used to boost longevity and are incredibly easy to make long lasting. Oajan features a ton of vanilla, which is actually one of the reasons why I do prefer Angel Share to it. In the air though, I would argue that these two fragrances pretty much smell identical, and I would really challenge someone to tell them apart on a day-to-day basis. That means that even just considering value for money, this comparison easily goes to Parfums de Marly. You get pretty much over double the liquid for the same price. So why do I have Angel Share? Just because that slight difference, that slight extra woodiness, that slight booziness, that slight adult edge that Angel Share has, to me, it's worth the money. I also like the way that Kilian bottles look like, especially paired with my other Kilian, while the bottles for the PDM are still objectively high quality and heavy and well made. Didn't really strike that kind of interest and creativity in me. So yes, I'm being shallow. Looks to me are important, especially because I wear fragrances that inspire me. If a fragrance does not inspire me, I will probably not wear it. And given the fact that these are not necessarily even my favorite scent profile, I really need an incentive to go and wear them. Overall, would I recommend Kilian's Angel Share or Parfums de Marly Oajan? Surprisingly, no. I would not recommend either of them unless you have a ton of money to splurge, unless you're passionate about Kilian or passionate about the bottle or passionate about this type of scent profile. I would definitely look into some cheaper options, namely Daniel Hosier's Ambre Tabac. It smells very close to these two, maybe even better, maybe even more refined and elegant. Or you could even go the Atkinson's, the Pirates Grand Reserve. That is definitely weaker, that is definitely more subtle. but it also has that extra powderiness and elegance. Again, there are tons of options within this fragrance family. Look up Angel's Share on Parfumo, look up Oajan on Parfumo, look at the similar fragrances. You're drowned by choice. Is this the ultimate mass appealing cold weather fragrance panty dropper compliment getter? Maybe. The scent profile is objectively good, it's subjectively mass appealing, and I can totally see people liking it, but don't buy into the hype. Make your own decisions, try it out, maybe get samples, maybe get decants. I'm not here to sell you anything, but look into the alternatives. Will I be keeping my bottle? Probably. Again, I'm not crazy about it. I don't need multiple of these because they all smell sort of the same, but until I decide I need to make room for other stuff, this will remain my reference for boozy, woody, ambery fragrances. If you like this type of content, if you like my approach to video, feel free to subscribe. It's always massively appreciated and it helps the channel. If you want to interact with me or connect with me, leave a comment, suggestion, opinion, or anything else down below. I always reply and I always keep the conversation open. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for your time. It's never taken for granted. Until the next video, many more to come. See ya and cheers.